Hello, I'm Geoff DeVito, one of the co-founders of the Xenia Series of Seminars in the Anthropology of Travel, Tourism, and Pilgrimage. As we move from one year to the next, it is tradition to take stock of the past year, reflecting on both the hardships and successes. For me personally, the Xenia Series of Seminars in the Anthropology of Travel, Tourism, and Pilgrimage was the shining star of the second half of 2020. In June, I, along with 5 additional co-conveners, shared anxiety on how we would deliver a summer course online that would have the same level of engagements and significant results as the previous year's program conducted in person in London. I was especially uncertain how teaching, learning, and community would exist in what is now an all too familiar virtual space. As often is the case, our anxieties were quickly relieved, and a lovely course was presented. In addition to the insightful conversations and debates inspired by the 2020 SOAS ATTP summer curriculum, I was especially pleased that a group of students previously unknown to one another and representing a strong diversity of geographic and cultural perspectives had bonded, and through this online learning platform, a true community of colleagues and, dare I say, friends emerged. With so much time spent at home in 2020, it was delightful to help build a new space where the exchange of ideas born from the anthropological perspective on travel, tourism, and pilgrimage would exist. It was in this spirit that Xenia was born. To recap the past inaugural season, Tom Selwyn will spend a few moments reflecting on the series so far, what we have discovered, and how we will usher in a robust 2021 season of Xenia. Thank you for all participating and attending and making contributions to keep this series moving in a time where spaces like these are more important than ever before. Tom, over to you.
Thank you very much, Geoff. So what follows consists of a summary, as Geoff said, of the Xenia presentations we have had since the series began in August 2020. And at the end of this short piece, there will be a summary paragraph which tries to identify the themes that run through the program. So since its inception, we've had 5 talks. Emma Tarlow on hair entanglements, Emily Miller on the London Migration Museum, Valeria Mata on ideas about movement of things and people, as well as processes of cooperative publishing, Safet Hadzi-Mohamedovic on issues of memory, shared identity, separation, and return, as these appear in the region of his field research in post-war Bosnia, and Raul Bianchi on life, work, and socio-economic transformations on Mediterranean island coasts. So what contours of this field are emerging? What is Xenia turning out to be about? Where might we be heading? Emma's talk addressed issues of production and consumption of an intimate product, hair, and traced different meanings evoked at each stage of its transformation. She described how hair of female pilgrims to a South Indian temple is habitually cut and collected before being exported to China, to be made into wigs before being re-exported to Jerusalem, where the wigs are worn by Orthodox Jewish women. One foundational issue here concerns the extent to which knowledge about the product and the conditions of its production, reproduction, and consumption is known about and understood at each chain of its movement. Emily's talk addressed the setting up of the Migration Museum and the extent to which the museum is able effectively to express contexts and processes of migration, involving, as these inevitably do, family disruption, bureaucratic hurdles, recovery of senses of home and belonging, identity reconstruction, and formations of diasporic networks. Valeria's work, replete as the book she launched is with images and textual fragments, was concerned with everything that moves. Her narrative focused on issues of displacement, memories, and memorials, the making of spaces in which to live and work, the making of new friends, all leading us to ask, to quote her, what do we understand when we think about the idea of home? Drawing on his book, Waiting for Elijah, Safet focused on ideas of home, separation, and return, as these were lived and imagined by his interlocutors following the Bosnian War. The area in which he carried out his field research witnessed the violent rupture of neighborly relations as a result of war. A, quotes, peace agreement, end of quotes, subsequently legitimated the separation on the basis of what came to be known as, quote, ethnic principles. He reflected on what happens on one day each year on the Feast of Elijah, when people who formerly were neighbors, but who now live apart, come together once again. What do we learn about the temporal and spatial layers of individual and collective identity from all this? Raoul addressed the quotidian economic and social transformations occurring on Mediterranean coastlines as the populations of villages and small towns move from fishing to aquaculture to tourism. How do communities organize and reorganize? What politico-economic powers are involved in these processes? How may we summarize and connect the ideas contained in these talks? Firstly, the series has considered contexts in which movement, separation, and return take place. Secondly, it has been concerned with questions of power and agency. In a world shaped by different forms of mobility, where is the power located that determines the movement of people and the formation of those classes and categories of people who exercise this power? What sort of connections and relations might we take between those who travel as tourists, pilgrims, or colonialists, and those who are forced to move as refugees? Thirdly, to what extent do we understand the movement of objects and the labor involved in their transformations as they move between producers, intermediaries, and consumers? Fourthly, can we imagine how home and homes may be made, remade, and refound in a contemporary world in which one recurring tradition of human movement derives from natural disaster and politico-economic conflict? This leads to a fifth and final question. What are the conditions in which we will be able once again to conceive of a world in which Xenia hospitality can be recovered as a guiding principle of global, regional, and local social organization?